Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavansam Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Dalita Sri Vishakharnitanshtam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
In another 3 minutes, we'll start. Okay, I'm putting one more song.
Okay.
Hari Hari Bipale Janama Goinu Hari Hari Bipale Janama Goinu Hari Hari Bipale Janama Goenu Manusha Janama Paya Radha Krishna Bhajiya Manusha Janama Paya Radha Krishna Bhajiya Janiya Suniya Vishakhainu Janiya Suniya Vishakhainu Hari Hari Bipale Golokera Golokera prema dhana Golokera prema dhana Hari Nama Sankirtana Golokera prema dhana Hari Nama Sankirtana Ratina Janmila Keneta Ratina Janmila Keneta Hari Hari Bipale Janama দেখি না যত ছিল হরি নামে উধারিল तरस की जगह माथा हा हा प्रभु नंद सुत वृषभानु सुत दुत करुणा करो हुए मारा नारदाम दास को है नातली हो रंग पाए तुम बिन के अचे आमा तुम बिन के अचे आमा हरि 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 विपुले
Yeah. Thank you for waiting, devotees. Thank you very much, Vanilla Mataji, Sapan Kumar Prabhu, Lakshmi Mataji, Dandat Pranams. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Today we will start with the new book. Okay, let us begin with Mangala Sharana prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यमीश्वरम्। ओम अपवित्र पवित्रो वा सर्वावस्थं गतोऽपि वा यस्मरेत् पुण्डरीकाक्षं साभ्याभ्यन्तरं शुचिः। श्री विष्णु श्री विष्णु श्री विष्णु। So we are reading from one of the small book compilation by Srila Prabhupada's teachings, based on the teachings of His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Our founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So one of the beautiful book, and I got connected. This is there are two books when I come to the Krishna consciousness way back, long back story, 2008 it seems. Yeah, 2008. 2008. I purchased two books from one of the book distributor. This was in Deccan bus stop in Pune. I still remember. I'm remembering those days. Two books I have specifically chosen: Coming Back and Beyond Birth and Death. And those two books I have read when I went to US. When I went to not US. When I went to Indonesia trip for an office visit for one of the project implementation. So I took those two books and Discover Yourself of Radhesham Prabhu, and I read it. So this is one of the important book actually. I liked a lot. Coming back, it connects with different concepts of reincarnation, and we have seen the contents: the quest for immortality, the mystery of consciousness, the reincarnation from Socrates to Salinger, changing bodies, soul research, three histories of reincarnation, the soul's secret journey, the logic of reincarnation, almost reincarnation, and never come back here. Don't come back. So total, these are the topics. So we will read during these upcoming weeks. So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I couldn't connect last Monday and Wednesday because I got busy with work. So thank you so much for joining. Let us begin. Okay. So we'll start with this preface. Anybody likes to start? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can I start?
Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu. Mata. Go
Preface.
ahead.
If you want to gain real control over our destiny, you must understand reincarnation and how it works. It's simple. Should I continue, Prabhu?
ఇది అన్ని చదివేసేయండి. ఏం చెప్తున్నారు? What is in there in each chapter?
Introduction brings into focus the need to approach the proper source for illumination. Despite the many theories of scientists, no laboratory investigation has revealed the mystery of consciousness.
So that is another chapter, the mystery of consciousness. Okay, go ahead, Mata.
Chapter 1 shows how reincarnation has profoundly influenced many of the world's greatest philosophers, poets, and artists from Socrates to Salinger. Next, the process of reincarnation as expounded in Bhagavad Gita, the oldest and most respected source book on the subject of transmigration of soul, is presented.
Reincarnation, yes, Mata.
Chapter 2 a lively dialogue between His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada and noted religious psychologist Professor Alfred Graf von Durkheim clearly shows how the material body and anti-material particle, the spirit soul, can never be the same.
Changing bodies, yes.
Chapter 3 a famous heart surgeon urges systematic research into the soul, and Srila Prabhupada cites the Vedic version, thousands of years older and strikingly more informative than modern medical science.
Soul research type, yes, ma'am.
Chapter 4 three fascinating narratives from the Vedic text Srimad Bhagavatam. These accounts stand as classic examples of how the soul transmigrates through different types of bodies under the control of precise laws of nature and karma.
Three histories are in there. Maybe that is a Bharat Maharaj story. Okay.
Chapter 5 experts from the writings of Srila Prabhupada clearly demonstrate that the principles of reincarnation can be easily understood in terms of ordinary events and common observations that regularly occur in our daily lives.
So that's the soul's secret journey. Yes, Mata.
Chapter 6 the next chapter describes how reincarnation embodies a universal and infallible system of justice, wherein the soul is never banished to eternal damnation, but is constitutionally endowed with a permanent opportunity to escape the perpetual cycle of birth and death.
Logic behind the reincarnation. Okay, Mata.
Chapter 7 common misconceptions and sick notions about reincarnation.
Yes, almost reincarnation. Okay.
Chapter 8 the concluding chapter presents the process through which the soul can transcend in reincarnation and enter realms in which it is finally freed from the prison of material body. Having once achieved this status, the soul never again returns to this endlessly mutable world of birth, death, old age, and disease.
Don't come back. Thank you, Mata. So nicely written. So to this endlessly mutable world, always changing, right? It's birth, death, cycle of birth and death. So birth, death, old age, and disease. So this one, actually, this site very long back, actually. I couldn't find PDF, so that's where. So this is from Bhaktivedanta Book Trust only. So see here, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust International. So it's there in the online. this book. Anybody can read. Okay, so let us read first chapter, preface. Yeah, thank you, Venala Matai. Sapan Prabhuji, can you please start?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Preface, the quest for immortality. We were behaving like we were going to live forever, which is what everyone thought in Beatles days, right? I mean, whoever thought we were going to die.
This is one of the group members, the Beatles, led by George Harrison, the very music band in UK, and they are connected with Srila Prabhupada and practicing Krishna consciousness during that time. This was his statement. Beatle Paul McCartney. Okay, start, Prabhu.
If you want to gain real control over your destiny, you must understand reincarnation and how it works. It's that simple. No one wants to die. Most of us would like to live forever in full vigor without wrinkles, gray hair, or arthritis. This is natural because the first and the most basic principle of life is to enjoy. If we could only enjoy life forever. Man's eternal quest for immortality is so fundamental that we find it nearly impossible to conceive of dying. Pulitzer Prize winner William Saroyan, author of The Human Comedy, echoed the views of most people when, in days of just prior to his death, he announced to the media, "Everybody has got to die, but I always believed an exception would be made in my case. Now what?" Most of us seldom think, if ever, think about death or what happens afterward. Some say that death is end of everything. Some believe in heaven and hell. Still others hold that this life is only one of the many we have lived and will live in the future. And more than one third of the world's population, over 1.5 billion people, accept reincarnation as an irrevocable fact of life. Reincarnation is not a belief system or a psychological device for escaping the grim finality of death, but a precise science that explains our past and future lives. Most books have been written on this subject, usually based on hypnotic regression, near death experiences, accounts of out of body experience, or deja vu. But most reincarnation literature is poorly informed, highly speculative, superficial, and inconclusive. Some books purport to document cases of people who, under hypnosis, have been regressed to previous lifetimes. They describe in detail houses they lived in, streets they walked on, parks they frequented as children, and names of their former parents, friends, and relatives. All this makes for interesting reading, and while such books have certainly stimulated the ever-widening public interest and belief in reincarnation, careful investigations have revealed that many of those so-called past life regression cases are rife with guesswork, inaccuracies, and even fraud. But most importantly, none of these popular works explain the fundamental facts about reincarnation, like the simple process by which the soul eternally transmigrates from one material body to another. In rare instances, when basic principles are discussed, authors generally present their own theories about how and in which particular case reincarnation occurs, as if some special or gifted living beings reincarnate and others do not. This type of presentation does not deal with the science of reincarnation, but introduces instead a confusing array of fabrications and contradictions, leaving the reader with scores of unanswered questions. For example, does one reincarnate instantaneously or slowly over a long period of time? Can other living beings like animals reincarnate human bodies? Can man appear as an animal? If so, how and why? Do we reincarnate forever or does it end somewhere? Can the soul suffer perpetually in hell or enjoy forever in heaven? Can we control our future incarnations? How? Can we be reborn on another planet, on other planets, or in other universes? Do good and evil actions play a role in determining our next body? What is the relationship between karma and reincarnation? Coming back fully answers these questions because it scientifically explains the true nature of reincarnation. Finally, this book provides the reader with practical instructions on how to come to grips with and rise above the mysterious and generally misunderstood phenomena of reincarnation, a reality that plays a vital role in shaping man's destiny. Hare Krishna.
Jai Babu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So, a few things just want to add here. See, this is a reincarnation is not a belief system or a psychological device for escaping the grim finality of death, but a precise science, that explains our past and future lives. So many books have been written on the subject, usually based on the hypnotic regression, near-death experiences, accounts of out-of-body experience, etc. So basically, this book, especially compilation from Srila Prabhupada's teachings in different various occasions, to support and understand scientifically how the reincarnation takes place. And lastly, how these questions so nicely crafted. This book is going to address all these questions. Does one reincarnate instantaneously or slowly or over a long period of time? Can other living beings like animals reincarnate in human bodies? Can man appear as an animal? If so, and how and why? Do we reincarnate forever? Does it end somewhere? Can the soul suffer perpetually in hell or enjoy forever in heaven? Can we control our future incarnations? How can we be reborn on other planets or in other universes? Do good and evil actions play a role in determining our next body? What is the relationship between karma and reincarnation? So this book gives all the answers. Okay, so coming back. Yes, because it scientifically explains the true nature of reincarnation based on the Bhagavad Gita, based on the Vedic literature, directly spoken by Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Okay, so let us read the other section. Yeah, we'll go to introduction. Right. Yeah. Yes. Hare Krishna, Pallavi Mataji, Sirisha Mataji, thank you for joining. Likita Mataji, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, Likita Mataji, you want to read? One by one, let us read. Everybody, some parts of this book will read. Okay? Yeah. Go ahead, Likita.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Introduction. The mystery of consciousness. Death. Man's most mysterious, relentless, and inevitable advisory. Does death mean the end of the life, or does it merely open the door to another life, another dimension, or another world? If man's consciousness survives the death experience, then what determines it transitions to new realities? In order to gain a clear understanding of these mysteries, man has traditionally turned into enlightened philosophers, accepting the teachings representative of a higher truth. Some criticize this method of acquiring knowledge from a higher authority, no matter how carefully the seeker may analyze it. Social philosopher E.F. Schumacher, an author of Small is Beautiful, notes that in our modern society, when people are out of touch with nature and traditional wisdom, they consider it fashionable to ridicule and only believe in what they see and touch and measure. 1 minute, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Or, or as the saying goes, seeing is believing. But when man endeavors to understand something beyond the scope of the material senses, beyond instruments of measurement and the faculty of mental speculation, then there is no alternative but to approach a higher source of knowledge. No scientist has successfully explained through laboratory investigations the mystery of consciousness or its destination after the destruction of a material body. Research in this field has produced many divergent theories, but their limitations must be recognized. The systematic principles of reincarnation, on the other hand, comprehensively explain the subtle laws governing our past, present, and future lives. If one is to
Chadarinda.
if
Yes.
one is to understand reincarnation at all, he must acknowledge the fundamental concept of consciousness as an energy, distinct from and superior to the matter composing the physical body. This principle is supported by examination of the unique thinking, feeling, and willing capacities of the human being. Can DNA stands or the other genetic components possibly induce the feelings of love and respect one person has for another? What atom or molecule is responsible for the subtle artistic nuisance in Shakespeare's Hamlet or Bach's Mass in B minor? Man and his infinite capabilities cannot be explained by mere atoms or molecules. Instead, the father of modern physics admitted that consciousness could not be adequately described in terms of physical phenomena. I believe that the present fashion of applying the axioms of science to human life is not only entirely a mistake, but also has something reprehensible in it. The great scientist once said, indeed, shall I continue, Prabhuji?
Yeah, continue with this.
Indeed, scientists have failed to explain consciousness by means of the physical laws that governing everything else within their purview. Frustrated by this falling, Nobel laureate in sociology,
Geology.
and medicine, Albert Gent Gorgi recently lamented, in my search for the secret of life, I ended up with atoms and electrons, when which have no life at all. Somewhere along the line, life has run out through my fingers. So in my old age, I am now retracing my steps, accepting the notion that.
Yeah, Mother. Yeah, thank you, Mother. Just to add
Thank you, Hare
something.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes. So basically, this title itself talks about the mystery of consciousness. So, what is that mystery of consciousness? Some scientists, there is a philosopher called Schumacher, E.F. Schumacher, author of Small is Beautiful. So there is a statement, right? Seeing is believing. Unless they see, touch, they won't believe. That kind of mentality, right? So some criticize this method of acquiring knowledge from a higher authority, no matter how carefully the seeker may analyze it. So this is the thing, mystery of consciousness, mystery of reincarnation, right? So here, few things there, thinking, feeling, and willing. This principle is supported. What is that principle? To understand how this reincarnation, he must acknowledge the fundamental concept of consciousness. And that consciousness can be experienced through this thing, by the examination of the unique thinking, feeling, and willing capacity of the human being. So DNA is there. DNA strands or other genetic components possibly induce the feelings of love and respect one person has for another. But what atom or molecule is responsible for subtle artistic nuances in Shakespeare, Hamlet, Prabhupada mentioned this one. What is there? Man and his infinite capabilities cannot be explained by mere atoms and molecules. So that's why human brain is developed, human consciousness is a developed consciousness compared to lower species of life, right? So that's why we have the power of discrimination, which is good, which is bad. There we can choose. Other living entities, there is no developed consciousness or intelligence like that. So that's where the seriousness of human life is. We have developed knowledge, we have developed mind, the intelligence. The activities we perform, it has to be according to Vedic literature, according to scriptures. Otherwise, these karmic actions, right? Karmic actions, action and reaction, applicable for only human beings, not other living entities, right? So there are two things, instinctive behavior and distinctive behavior. Instinct, అనుకున్నది వెంటనే చేసేయడం అనమాట. But whereas distinction behavior, we have the discrimination power, whether we have to do, if I do it, what results will come, what reactions will come. That we have that with the mind, with the intelligence, we have that capacity to understand. So here, thinking, feeling, and willing, the consciousness, through that, that human body, the human intelligence, experiencing different things. So reincarnation, so different concepts there, out of body experiences, near death experiences, different lives. How can we understand? So we put ourselves faith in the scripture, then try to understand. So if you see Einstein, who is the Einstein? He's a great scientist actually. He's a father of modern physics, admitted this consciousness could not be adequately described in terms of physical phenomena. What is that physical phenomena? There are two things. There are a few things mentioned here. Instruments. Beyond the scope of material senses. The consciousness beyond instruments of measurement. What is this? When a man endeavors to understand something beyond the scope of the material senses, beyond the instruments of measurement, and the faculty of mental speculation, there is no alternative but to approach a higher source of knowledge. So problem with this material world is, they try to understand with instruments, try to understand with material senses, and try to speculate, whether reincarnation there or not, these things. But when we approach a higher source of knowledge, that means that knowledge is everlasting and ever existing. What is that knowledge? So Vedas. When the creation starts, this knowledge also given for that particular entire creation, how a mankind has to believe, how these rules and regulations, why these rules and regulations, what is the benefit, why if we not follow, what happens. So we have to understand it beyond our capacities, right? Because human beings are made up of those 4 defects. What are the 4 defects? Illusion, become illusion. With the illusion, you commit mistakes. There is a cheating propensity. And we have imperfect senses, limited, imperfect senses. So with the imperfect senses, we cannot understand these concepts. That's why we have to approach a higher source of knowledge. That's where it's mentioned here. What is that higher source of knowledge? Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, what these scriptures talks about on this topic, right? So that's the thing. So we'll continue reading. Actually, this Prabhu wanted me to introduce something. There is one Mata joined, Indira Mataji. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining today. I think she's on not audio Prabhu, Sapan Kumar Prabhu.
Yeah, she's using the phone, Prabhu, so she's not used to Zoom meetings. But
okay, but I mean, I don't know. She won't be able to hear Prabhu. I mean, she is just on video off, but I don't see the this one microphone.
oh, is it? Okay.
That's okay. We'll talk later. Let us
Okay,
continue our sequence readings. Okay, right? Yeah. See, another physiology is a Nobel laureate, Nobel Prize winner in physiology and medicine, Albert Szent-Györgyi, recently lamented. In my search for the secret of life, I ended up with atoms and electrons, which I have no life at all. Somewhere along the line, life has run out through my fingers. So in my old age, I am now retracting my steps, feeling that, is a great, after research, so much research happened, is having this conclusion. I ended up with atoms and electrons and which have no life. at all. Somewhere along the line, life has run out through my fingers. So in my old age, I am now retracting my steps. So actually, in his understanding, Nobel, this prize winner, the scientist, no life. Actually, there is a life in every atom, every molecule, everything. Chara achara. As per the Vedic literature, as per our understanding of this, as per Vaishnava Acharyas, there is chara achara. Everywhere in Krishna's creation, everything in accordance with Krishna, everything is there. Everything in connection with Supreme. Chara achara is there in the material elements, is there in the living entities. Both. Let us continue reading so that we'll understand. Pallavi Mataji, would you like to read Hare Krishna from here? Accepting. Hare Krishna Mataji. Pallavi Mataji. Maybe you are speaking on mute. No. Yeah. Then Lakshmi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah, I
Hare
didn't see.
Krishna.
It was on mute.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Morning. Hare Krishna.
You want me to read or Lakshmi Mataji will read?
Yeah. Lakshmi
Hello?
Mataji.
No problem, Mataji, you can continue. After I can read.
Okay, ma'am. Accepting the notion that consciousness arises from molecular
Highlight பண்றேன் படி.
యాక్చువల్గా ఇందిరా మాతది మీతో మాట్లాడారు మాతది తర్వాత మీరు జస్ట్ మీ ఇంగ్లీష్ అర్థం అవుతుంది కదా మాతది హరే కృష్ణ
Yeah, English I can read.
yes థ్యాంక్ యూ ఫర్ జాయినింగ్
Sir, can I read now, sir?
మాతది
Can I read now?
యూ వాంట్ టు రీడ్ యా జస్ట్ రీడ్ యా యూ వాంట్ టు రీడ్
Okay.
లక్ష్మీ మాతాజీ అండ్ పల్లవి మాతాజీ మీరు నెక్స్ట్ చదువుతుర్లేండి మాతాజీ ఈ మాతాజీ
Okay.
కొత్త
Yeah.
Let her read, get some in. Go ahead, Mataji.
Accepting the notion that consciousness arises from molecular interaction requires an enormous leap of faith, much greater than that required for a metaphysical explanation. As Thomas Huxley, the well-known biologist, said, it seems to me pretty plain that there is a third thing in the universe, to wit, consciousness, which I cannot see to be matter of force or any conceivable modification of either. Further recognition of the unique properties of consciousness was given by Nobel laureate in physics Niels Bohr, who remarked, we can admittedly find nothing in physics or chemistry that has even a remote bearing on consciousness. Yet all of us know there is such a thing as consciousness simply because we have it ourselves. Hence, consciousness must be part of nature, or more generally, of reality, which means that quite apart from the laws of physics and chemistry, as laid down in quantum theory, we must also consider laws of quite a different kind. Such laws might well include the laws of reincarnation, which govern the passage of consciousness from one physical body into another.
Go ahead.
To begin understanding these laws, we may note that reincarnation is not an alien, antipodal event, but one that occurs with regularity in our own bodies during this very lifetime. In the human brain, Professor John Pfiffner notes, your body does not contain a single one of the molecules that it contained 7 years ago. Even every 7 years, one's whole body is completely regenerated. The self, however, our real identity remains unchanged. Our old age, yet the person within the body, the I, always remains the same. Reincarnation based on the principle of a consciousness self-independent of its physical body is part of a higher order system governing the living being's transmigration from one material form to another. Since reincarnation deals with our most essential selves, it is a subject of the utmost relevance to everyone. Can I continue, sir?
Continue, Mother. Yes.
Coming back explains the fundamentals of reincarnation presented in the timeless Vedic text Bhagavad Gita. The Gita, thousands of years older than the Dead Sea Scrolls, provides the most complete explanation of reincarnation available anywhere. It has been studied for millennia by many of the world's greatest thinkers, and since spiritual knowledge is eternally true and does not change with each new scientific theory, it is still relevant today. Harvard biophysicist D.P. Dupe writes, we may lead ourselves down a blind alley by adhering dogmatically to the assumption that life can be explained entirely by what we know of the laws of nature. By remaining open to the ideas embodied in the Vedic tradition of India, modern scientists can see their old disciplines from a new perspective, and further, the aim of all scientific endeavor, the search for truth. In this age of global uncertainty, it is imperative that we understand the real origin of our conscious self, how we find ourselves in different bodies and conditions of life, and what our destinations will be at the time of death. This essential information is comprehensively explained in Coming Back.
Yes, Mother. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So basically, in this book we are talking Indira Mataji. Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya of ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He's a very Vedic scholar and is a great devotee of Supreme Lord Krishna. And he is situated in Vaishnava Sampradaya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So these books are in connection with different topics when he was there on the material. So on that time, on the how the science is talking about reincarnation, how our Vedic literature, especially Bhagavad Gita, talks about the reincarnation. So he has written so many books. Okay, Bhagavad Gita as it is, it translated so nicely. That Bhagavad Gita as it is, we are referring here because we are part of ISKCON.
Yes.
We are through Bhagavad Gita, and these books are in connection with Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam teachings. So talks about reincarnation. So how the reincarnation takes place, different chapters there. Right? One soul transmigrates one body to another body. That means the reincarnation is there, right?
Rebirth, sir. Rebirth,
yeah, that's where rebirth.
Yeah.
Rebirth, that rebirth can be according to person's consciousness. How the person is thinking, how the person is situated in that in that form of human life.
Yes.
He attains that particular. In the Bhagavad Gita, it talks actually. Krishna directly says those. There are two important verses. I'll share the that also. Yeah, Vapi Smaran Bhavam, and then one more. Antakale Chamami, another verse is there. So these two verses talks about the reincarnation only. Of course, what kind of body we are going to get in this life. We will slowly will get into it. It's just in a sequence we are reading these books.
Okay, sir. Okay, correct.
Coming back means coming back as a different living entity, or last chapter of this book is don't come back. We don't want to experience different bodies. We just experience eternal body, spiritual body. So that's come slowly. We'll get to know. Read. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining, and let other devotees
Thank
read
you, sir.
also.
Thank you. Jai Shri Krishna, sir. Okay.
Yes.
So,
So,
my husband can he read, sir? Can he give
yes,
one para? Just one para. Sir,
let him read.
Sir. Okay, sir.
Chapter 1 shows you can read, Prabhuji.
Yes, sir. You can say, sir. This one. Chapter 1.
One shows how the reincarnation has probably influences many of the world's greatest philosophers, poets, and artists. Shows rates of Salinger. Next, there is the process of reincarnation as expounded in Bhagavad Gita, the oldest and most respected source book on the subject of transgressions of the soul, is presented. Chapter 2.
Yes, చదవండి. Yeah.
Chapter 2. A lovely dialogues between His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Prabhupada, a noted religious psychologist, professors, certified gravestone drug film, clearly shows how the metal body and the unmaterial particles, the spirit soul, can never be the same. The chapter 3. Famous heart surgeons urge systematic research into the soul and Srila Prabhupada cities, the Vedic version, thousands of years older and strikingly more informative than modern medicine science. 3 fascinating narratives from the Vedic text. Srimad Bhagavad Gita constitutes chapter 4. These accounts started as classics, is how the soul transgress through laws of nature and karma. Hare Krishna.
ఇంకో హీరోయిన్ చదివేషన్. Yes, please read.
Which one, sir? Chapter 5 also, sir?
In chapter 5, experts from the writing of Srila Prabhupada rarely demonstrate that the principles of reincarnations can be easily understood in terms of ordinary events and common observations and regularly occur in the daily lives. The next chapter describes how reincarnations embodies an universal and infallible systems of justice, wherein souls is never buried to eternal demonstration, but a constitutionally endowed with the permanent opportunity to escape the perpetual cycle of birth and death. Common misconceptions and ethics notes about reincarnations from the subject of chapter 7 and the concluding chapter don't come back. The present the process through which the soul can transcend reincarnations and enter and return claims in which it is finally freed from the prison of the material body. Having once achieved this status, the soul never again returns to this endlessly mutable world of birth, disease, old age, and death.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
మీ పేరు, your name?
Sai Baba. Sai Baba. My name is Sai Baba.
Okay. Right.
Actually,
Thank you.
his number
Thank
also
you.
has been added, sir, but today he didn't get that one. So just thank you,
Sure,
sir. Hare Krishna, sir.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining. So this,
We are very much interested, sir, spiritual. Thank you.
yeah, please join regularly and read. Let us read and try to understand.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
tell
you.
me, sir.
Yeah. So here, different in these paragraphs, different scientists' names mentioned. Let me go through it quickly, and then we'll go to first chapter of this book. Okay. So this personality, Thomas Huxley, the well-known biologist. It seems what he's saying. It seems to be. It seems to me pretty plain. Third thing in the universe, to wit, consciousness, which I cannot see to be matter or force or any conceivable modification of either. That he also understood and concluded that there is a consciousness beyond the material body, beyond the material elements. There is another Nobel laureate in physics, Niels Bohr, who remarked what he is remarking. We can admittedly find nothing in physics or chemistry that has even a remote bearing on consciousness. Yet all of us know there is such a thing as consciousness, simply because we have it ourselves. Hence, consciousness must be part of nature, or more generally, of reality, which means that quite apart from the laws of physics and chemistry as laid down in quantum theory, we must also consider laws of quite a different kind. So this Nobel laureate, this Nobel Prize winner, physician, also saying that there is a consciousness beyond this material body. Okay, so that's the thing. So another professor in the human brain, Professor John Pfeffer notes, your body does not contain a single one of the molecules that it contained 7 years ago. So every 7 years, we got the new body. Actually, every minute in our body, the cells, the bodily parts are changing every minute. Every 7 years, one's old body is completely rejuvenated. The self, however, is our real identity, remains unchanged. Our bodies grow from infancy to youth to middle age, then to old age. Yet the person within the body, the I, always the same. I talks about the soul. Soul is always same. Soul is experiencing these changes in our body, right? Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara tata dehantaram praptis dhirastatra namuhyati. Second chapter itself, Krishna says this verse. Dehinosmin yata dehe. This body is changing. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara. From boyhood to youth to old age. Okay, but soul, a sober person who understands this spiritual knowledge, who understands the soul's nature, never bewildered. He is a sober person. He's understood that, the body is just like changing dress, one dress to another dress, like that. So let us see another. So these are the things. Coming back explains the fundamentals of reincarnation presents. That's what it is, right? From Bhagavad Gita. What Bhagavad Gita talks about. Bhagavad Gita is the timeless Vedic. There is no question of time for the Bhagavad Gita when this existed. It is there. It is always there. Since time immemorial. Since time when the creation takes place, this knowledge also given. So how can we understand? Krishna himself says that, yes, I have given this knowledge millions of years ago before to you, Arjuna. He's saying that to sun god Vivaswan, millions of years ago. That means this knowledge is always there. That's why it's got timeless. There is no question of time. That's where when we repeatedly read Bhagavad Gita, we are also, what is the material subject and what is the spiritual subject? Difference is material subject is temporary. It is always changing. Whereas spiritual subject like Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam never changes. Always the same. In this lifetime, next lifetime, previous lifetime. It is always there. Okay, so Gita, thousands of years older than the Dead Sea Scrolls, provides the most complete explanation of reincarnation available anywhere. And this is one more biophysicist, D.P. Dupe writes, we may lead ourselves down a blind alley by adhering dogmatically to the assumption that life can be explained entirely but what we know of the laws of nature. But remaining open to the ideas embodied in the Vedic tradition of India, modern scientists can see their own disciplines from a new perspective and further the aim of all scientific endeavor, the search for the truth. So nicely is mentioned this scientist, biophysicist D.P. Dupe. Very nice. Actually, science, there is a perfect science situated in the Vedic literature. Of course, these scientists, doing all various research, but in accordance, in connects with Vedic literature, they get complete knowledge. So they have to understand, by remaining open to the ideas embodied in the Vedic tradition of India, modern scientists can see their own disciplines from a new perspective. Very long back, this is described in the Vedic literature. For example, how a human body takes place in mother's womb. Way before the scientific research, way before the scientific theories, it was explained in the Vedic literature, how the body is growing in mother's womb from zero conception to coming out of that body. Right? Zero 1 month, 2 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, how the bodily organs growing, how the thinking, feeling, willing, how the mind is working inside body, how these experiences. It is explained way before in the literature, in the Vedic literature. That means we see that this knowledge is always perfect. There is no other knowledge perfect than this Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, because this is directly from Krishna, and Krishna is eternal. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. The Krishna only created this material world. Krishna only giving this knowledge. So this is the thing. In the age of we are in the global uncertainty. What happens to us, we never know. Last 2.5, 3 years, we are all, most of us suffered from corona, and some people died. It's uncertainty. We never know what are the calamities comes in upcoming years, right? There are 3 kinds of Adhyatmika, Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika. Sufferings from other living entities, sufferings from our own body and mind, sufferings from natural calamities. So we just have to understand. It is imperative that we understand the real origin of our consciousness selves, how we find ourselves in different bodies and conditions of life. These very important statements. How we find ourselves in different bodies and conditions of life, and what our destinations will be at the time of death. The essential information comprehensively explained in this book called Coming Back. So we already read different what these chapters talks about. I'm skipping this. Let us read the first chapter today, some part. Okay, this chapter talks about shows how reincarnation has profoundly influenced many of the world's greatest philosophers, poets, artists, from Socrates to Salinger. Next, the process of reincarnation is expounded in Bhagavad Gita, the oldest and most respected source book on the subject matter of transmigration of the soul is presented. So let us read this. From here, actual chapter begins. Okay. So, okay. Lakshmi Mataji, Chadan Mataji.
Chapter 1, Reincarnation. Socrates to Salinger. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. It has not come into being, doesn't come into being, and will not come into being.
Yes, Mataji.
He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Bhagavad Gita 2.20.
Yeah, Mataji, I wanted to read the sloka. I forgot.
Okay.
2.20. This one. Na jayate mriyate va kada.
Yeah. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin. Nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha. Ajo nitya shashvato yam purano. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Shall I read translation?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sorry, Prabhuji, can I sing this verse? This is my favorite. Just thought of,
After you sing, I will also sing. First, let her read the translation.
For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, doesn't come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Yes, Prabhuji.
Mother, you can recite.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha ajo nityah shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Bhagavad Gita, right? Song of God. So we have here singer Lakshmi Mata, Hare Krishna. Lakshmi Mata, Hare
No, Prabhuji, I learned that way. That's the only thing.
Yes, very nice. Let me recite the one more time. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha Ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So that is starting point of this chapter 1. Right? So Mata, continue reading.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. I cannot see the full page, Prabhu.
అవునా?
I'm missing right side part.
అయితే ఒక పని చేస్తాను. ఇది ఇది ఆన్లైన్‌లో చదువుతున్నా మాత ఇది. సో దట్స్ వేర్. ఆర్ యూ ఏబుల్ టు సీ? ఆర్ యూ ఏబుల్ టు సీ?
Okay, Prabhu.
మీరు కనిపిస్తుంది.
Yeah, I'll continue. Does life begin with birth and end with death? Have we lived before? Such questions are normally identified with religions of the East, where the life of man is known to endure not only from the cradle to the grave, but through millions of ages, and acceptance of the idea of rebirth is nearly universal. As Arthur Schopenhauer, the great 19th century German philosopher, once observed, where an Asiatic to ask me for a definition of Europe, I should be forced to answer him. It is that part of the world which is haunted by the incredible delusion that man was created out of nothing, and that is present, and that his present birth is his first entrance into life. Parerga and Paralimponia 11, chapter 16. Is this something Greek?
ఇది బుక్ రాశాడు మాత. ఆర్థర్ స్కోపెన్హౌయర్ ఈ ఫిలాసఫర్ ఇది రాసిన బుక్ లో నుంచి తీసినమాట.
Okay. Indeed, the dominant ideology of the West, material science, has the several centuries stifled any serious or widespread interest in the pre-existence and survival of consciousness beyond the present body. But throughout Western history, there have always been thinkers who have understood and affirmed the immortality of consciousness and transmigration of the soul. And a multitude of philosophers, authors, artists, scientists, and politicians have given the idea thoughtful consideration. Ancient Greece. Among the ancient Greece, Socrates, Pythagoras, and Plato may be numbered among those who made reincarnation an integral part of their teachings. At the end of his life, Socrates said, I am confident that there truly is such a thing as living again, and that the living spring from the dead. Okay, I'll skip that. Pythagoras claimed he could remember his past lives, and Plato presented detailed accounts of reincarnation in his major works. Briefly, he held that the pure soul falls from the plane of absolute reality because of sensual desire and then takes on a physical body. First, the fallen souls take birth in human forms, the highest of which is that of the philosopher who strives for higher knowledge. If his knowledge becomes perfect, the philosopher can return to an eternal existence. But if he becomes hopelessly entangled in material desires, he descends into the animal species of light. Plato believed that gluttons and drunkards may become in future lives. Violent and unjust people may take birth as wolves and hawks, and blind followers of social convention may become bees or ants. After some time, the soul again attains the human form and another chance to achieve liberation. Some scholars believe that Plato and the other early Greek philosophers derived their knowledge of reincarnation from mystery religions like Orphism or from India. Shall I continue, Prabhuj?
Mataji?
Shall I continue? Judaism.
Judaism, Christianity, Islam.
Yeah. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Hints of reincarnation are also.
Yeah. So why it starts with it? Because how other Greeks and various other different philosophers understanding about the reincarnation. That's where this chapter talks about Socrates to Salinger. That's why we see ancient Greece, Judaism, Christianity, right? So these are the Westerners. What is the Westerner thinking on the reincarnation? That's where this they discussed here. Okay, yeah. Continue.
Yes, Prabhuji. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Hints of reincarnation are also common in the history of Judaism and early Christianity. Information about past and future lives is found throughout the Kabbalah, which, according to many Hebraic scholars, represents the hidden wisdom behind the scriptures. In the Zohar, one of the principal Kabbalistic texts, it is said the souls must re-enter the absolute substance when hence they have emerged. But to accomplish this, they must develop all the perfections, the germ of which is planted in them. And if they have not fulfilled this condition during one life, they must commence another, a third, and so forth, until they have acquired the condition which fits them for reunion with God. According to the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia, the Hasidic Jews hold similar beliefs. In the 3rd century AD, the theologian Origen, one of the fathers of the early Christian church and its most accomplished biblical scholar, wrote, by some inclination toward evil, certain souls come into bodies first of men, then through their association with the irrational passions after the allotted span of human life, they are changed into beasts, from which they sink to the level of plants. From this condition, they rise again through the same stages and are restored to their heavenly place. There are many passages in the Bible itself indicating that Christ and his followers were aware of the principle of reincarnation. Once the disciples of Jesus disciples of Jesus asked him about the Old Testa- Testament, Testament prophecy that Elias would reappear on earth. In the Gospel of Saint Matthew, we read, and Jesus answered them, Elias shall truly first come and restore all things. But I say unto you, Elias is come already, and they knew him not. Then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. In other words, Jesus declared that John the Baptist, who has beheaded by Herod, was a reincarnation of the prophet Elias. In other instance, Jesus and his disciples came across a man blind from birth. The disciples asked Jesus, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Regardless who had sinned, Jesus replied, here was a chance to show a work of God. He then cured the man. Now, had the man been born blind for a sin of his own, it must have been a sin done before his birth, that is, in a previous life. And this was a suggestion that Jesus did not dispute. The Quran says, and you were dead, and he brought you back to life, and he shall cause you to die, and shall bring you back to life, and in the end shall gather you unto himself. Among the followers of Islam, the Sufis especially believe that death is no loss, for the immortal soul continually passes through different bodies. Jalaluddin Rumi, a famous Sufi poet, writes, I died as a mineral and became a plant. I died as a plant and rose to animal. I died as an animal and I was man. Why should I fear when was I less by dying? The timeless Vedic scriptures of India confirm that the soul, according to its identification with material nature, takes one of 84 lakhs forms and one embodied in a certain species of life evolves automatically from lower to higher forms, ultimately attaining a human body. Thus, all of the major Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have definite threads of reincarnation throughout the fabric of their teachings, even though the official custodians of dogma ignore or deny them.
So these are the various references pointed out here, putting in this book to understand, how the reincarnation concept there in other practices, religious practices, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, various ancient Greece, we have seen, right? So this is the thing. So most of the thing they understood in different aspects, but our Vedic literature is give the proper understanding, perfect understanding. Yes, Mataji, very nice. Thank you for reading this references. Okay, so let us read. Pallavi Mataji, would you like to read?
Yeah, Prabhuji.
The Middle Ages and the Renaissance.
Yeah. Tarvat. The Age of Enlightenment. During the Age of Enlightenment, European intellectuals began to free themselves from the constraints of church censorship. The great philosopher Voltaire wrote that the Middle Ages, Prabhuji and Kindi Chautna.
Under circumstances.
Middle Ages and Renaissance. Under circumstances that to this very day remain shrouded in mystery, the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, 553 AD, banned the teachings of pre-existence of the soul from the Roman Catholic Church. During that era, numerous church writings were destroyed, and many scholars now believe that references to reincarnation were purged from the scriptures. The Gnostic sects, although severely persecuted by the church, did, however, manage to keep alive the doctrine of reincarnation in the West. The word Gnostic is derived from the Greek gnosis, meaning knowledge. During the Renaissance, a new flowering of public interest in reincarnation occurred. One of the prominent figures in the revival was Italy's leading philosopher and poet, Giordano Bruno, who was ultimately sentenced to be burned at the stake by the Inquisition because of his teachings about reincarnation. In his final answers to the charges brought against him, Bruno defiantly proclaimed that the soul is not the body and that it may be in one body or in another and pass from body to body. Because of such suppression by the church, the teachings of reincarnation then went deeply underground, surviving in Europe in the secret societies of the Rosicrucians, Freemasons, Kabbalists, and others. The Age of Enlightenment. During the Age of Enlightenment, European intellectuals began to free themselves from the constraints of church censorship. The great philosopher Voltaire wrote that the doctrine of reincarnation is neither absurd nor useless, adding, "It is not more surprising to be born twice than once." One may be surprised to note, however, that several of America's founding fathers were fascinated by and ultimately accepted the idea of reincarnation, as interest in the subject made its way across the Atlantic to America. Expressing his firm belief, Benjamin Franklin wrote, "Finding myself to exist in the world, I believe I shall, in some shape or other, always exist." In 1814, former US President John Adams, who had been reading books about Hindu religion, wrote another ex-president, the sage of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson, about the doctrine of reincarnation. After revolting against the supreme being, some souls were hurled, Adams wrote, down to the regions of total darkness. They were then the statements said, released from prison, permitted to ascend to earth and migrate into all sorts of animals, reptiles, birds, beasts, and men according to their rank and character, and even into vegetables and minerals, there to serve on probation. If they passed without reproach their several graduations, they were permitted to become cows and men. If as men they behaved well, they were restored to their original rank and bliss in heaven. In Europe, Napoleon was fond of telling his generals that in previous life he was Charlemagne. John Wolfgang von Goethe, one of the greatest German poets, also believed in reincarnation and may have encountered the idea in his readings in Indian philosophy. Goethe, renowned as a dramatist and scientist, as well once remarked, I am certain that I have been here as I am now 1,000 times before, and I hope to return 1,000 times. Continue.
నాకు కూడా టైం దగ్గర వస్తుంది. ఇంకా ఇద్దరు మాతాజీస్ ఉన్నారు. లెట్ దెమ్ రీడ్ మాతాజీ. స్వప్న మాతాజీ అండ్ శ్రీషా మాతాజీ ఇస్ దేర్.
Yeah, ఇది చాలా బాగుంది కదా ప్రభుజీ. They were then the statement released from prison, permitted to ascend to earth. A para.
Yes. So basically ఇవన్నీ రిఫరెన్సెస్ మాతాజీ. These are all the references from different philosophers and different regions of this world. So nicely.
And they comparing is like very nice.
అన్ని ఎక్కడి నుంచి తీసుకున్నారు అనేది కూడా పెట్టారు చూడండి. దట్స్ ద బ్యూటీ ఆఫ్ ఇస్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ రీసెర్చ్. By looking at this, where they are getting all this. It is a research topic actually. Because the reincarnation, the topic itself says that, right? Reincarnation from Socrates to Salinger, different philosophers, scientists, and from different regions, all these Westerners, how their understanding of this reincarnation, and with the references like in the where it's mentioned. That's a beauty. It's not a just like we are reading. Thank you for reading, Mataji. Another to devotee is there. Let me ask Shirisha Mataji or Swapna Mataji, you are there? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I'm here.
Yeah, Swapna Mataji. I'm asking another Mataji also. Shirisha Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Sorry.
Transcendentalism.
Yeah.
Interest in reincarnation and Indian philosophy also ran strong among the American transcendentalists, including Emerson, Whitman, and Thoreau. Emerson wrote, "It is the secret of the world that all things subsist and do not die, but only retire a little from sight and afterwards return again. Nothing is dead. Men feign themselves dead and endure mock funerals and mournful obituaries, and there they stand looking out of the window, sound and well, in some new and strange disguise." The selected wrongs of Ralph Waldo Emerson, editor, Books, Atkinson, New York, Modern Library, 1950, page 445. From the
అది రిఫరెన్స్లు ఉన్నాయి. ఇట్స్ ఓకే, చదివినా ఓకే, దట్స్ ఫైన్.
From the Katha Upanishad, one of the many books of ancient Indian philosophy in his library, Emerson quoted, "The soul is not born, it does not die, it was not produced from anyone, unborn, eternal, it is not slain, though the body is slain." Thoreau, the philosopher of Walden Pond, wrote, "As far back as I can remember, I have unconsciously referred to the experience of previous state of existence." Another sign of Thoreau's deep interest in reincarnation is a manuscript discovered in 1926 entitled The Transmigration of the Seven Brahmanas. This short work in an English translation of the story about reincarnation from an ancient Sanskrit history. The transmigration episode follows the lives of seven sages through progressive incarnations as hunters, princes, and animals. And Walton Whitman, in his poem Song of My Life, writes, I know I am deathless. We have thus far exhausted trillions of winters and summers. There are trillions ahead and trillions ahead of them. In France, famed author Honoré Balzac wrote an entire novel about reincarnation. Serapita. Their blank states, Balzac states, all human beings go through a previous life. Who knows how many freshly forms the heir of heaven occupies before he can be brought to understand the value of the silence and solitude, whose starry plains are but a vestibule of spiritual words. In David Copperfield, Charles Dickens explored an experience that hints at remembrances from past lives. Deja vu. All have some experience of feeling that comes over us occasionally. Prabhuji, deja vu here means already seen.
Mhm.
It is in French. Of what we are saying and doing having been said and done before in a remote time, of our having been surrounded dim ages ago by the same faces, objects, and circumstances. And in Russia, the eminent court Leo Tolstoy wrote, as we live through thousands of dreams in our present life, so in our present life, only one of the many thousands of such lives which enter from the other, more real life, and then return after death. Our life is but one of the dreams of that more real life. And so it is endlessly until the very last one and very real life, the life of God.
మాధవ్ ఓకే. సో ఇది ఆల్రెడీ 8 o'clock అవుతుంది. మనం మళ్ళీ మండే కనెక్ట్ అయ్యి చూద్దాం అది. ఓకేనా?
Okay, Prabhuji.
That's what it is. Another 2 sections there. The modern age, and then Bhagavad Gita, the timeless source book on reincarnation. So Bhagavad Gita, what is explaining there? We will read on Monday. So nicely pointed out from different references from different religions and their different scientists, philosophers, and these things. Right? So different pointing where exactly they quoted and what their understanding on this topic is so nicely presented in this book. Very good. So actually Shirisha Mata is not there. Anyway, let us conclude here. Okay. Thank you so much, devotees. So the reincarnation, of course, with the Bhagavad Gita perspective, it's easy to understand. Don't need to worry about all other philosophers and different their understandings. We have perfect knowledge from Krishna, and that's it. These are all, just to understand for knowledge purpose, how they're understanding. That's it. That's where they are putting in this topic. Okay, so let us conclude here. Thank you so much for all of you joining today. Let us connect on Monday. Venala Mataji, Sapan Kumar Prabhu, Indira Mataji, Lakshmi Mataji, Lakshmi K Mataji. Two Lakshmi Mataji, Lakshmi K Mataji, Lakshmi P Mataji, Haribol, Ligita Mataji, Pallavi Mataji, Swapna Mataji. Thank you so much for your time. This time is for Krishna, okay? That's where this program is called Krishna Nito Sayantram. So we are with Krishna. We are with Vaishnava Acharyas. We are with pure devotees, pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada's teachings. Okay? Thank you so much. Let us connect on Monday. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo Sitanam Bhavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo Antakoti Vaishnava Vrindaki Jai. जय गुरुदेव की जय हिताय गौर हरि प्रेमानंदे हरि
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you so much. ఇందిరా మాతది మీతో మాట్లాడతాను సపన్ కుమార్ ప్రభు